Hi, I'm Congressman Wolf from Virginia. Tomorrow is the 7th anniversary of the terrorist attack on the U.S. consulate and annex in Benghazi, Libya. This attack took the lives of 4 Americans, Ambassador Stevens, Sean Smith, Glenn Doherty, and Tyrone Woods. At least 4 others were seriously injured in the attack, and we know now that these injuries were so severe that some, at least one, are still recovering in a hospital. I appreciate General Boykin, who served in Delta Force and later became Deputy Undersecretary for Intelligence, and Frank Gaffney, who served as Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense during the Reagan administration, for joining me here today to discuss the letter signed by 700 Special Forces officials endorsing my legislation to create a select committee on the terrorist attack in Benghazi. As of today, 85 members, House members, 85, have co-sponsored this bill, and more are joining every day. Members are hearing from their constituents all around the country that they are not satisfied with the information we have received about the administration's response to the attack. And a strong letter from the special operations community made clear that there are too many unanswered questions. The special operators who sign these letters have trained, prepared for, and executed missions to help Americans under attack overseas. As General Boykin will tell you, they live by the principle that no comrade should ever be left behind. These veterans have put their lives on the line for our country, and we should give particular attention to the questions that they have raised. I now give you General Boykin.
Thank you. Thank you, Congressman. My name is Jerry Boykin. I'm the Executive Vice President of the Family Research Council. I am also a retired Special Operations Officer, and these 700 plus names that are on this letter asking for a bipartisan commission to study the events in Benghazi, all of those people spent the majority of their professional careers preparing for and executing operations to rescue fellow Americans. We live by an ethos. That ethos says, I will never leave a fallen comrade to fall into the hands of the enemy. That ethos, that American value, was violated in Benghazi on September 11th. We believe very strongly that the families of the dead, as well as those who survived this incident, and the American public in general, are entitled to a full accounting as to why there was not a military operation, as to why there was no effort to ensure that those people were rescued or that their bodies were recovered before they could fall into Libyan hands. We're simply supporting Congressman Wolf's initiative, House Resolution 36, and asking that the Congress step up, play a leadership role, and get to the bottom of what happened in Benghazi, wherever the chips may fall. I'll now turn it over to Frank Gaffney from the Center for Security Policy. Thank you.
My name is Frank Gaffney. I'm the president of the Center for Security Policy and have been very proud to be associated with this effort, mounted principally by the Special Operations Speaks organization, to develop and bring to the attention of the Congress this cohort of special operators led by General Jerry Boykin, who are committed to establishing at long last the truth concerning what happened not only during the attack and why we were repeatedly misled about what happened in the course of it subsequent to the attack, but also what led up to it. The policies in particular, it seems to me, have to be addressed as well, specifically the policy of engaging Islamists in Libya, which was unfortunately the predicate for what went down there, as some of them turned their weapons on our personnel. I'm very proud to say that Frank Wolf is my congressman from Northern Virginia. I'm exceptionally pleased that he's taken the lead here in the House of Representatives in the way he always does, with a tenacity a commitment to principle, and a recognition that accountability is absolutely essential to our form of government. And I hope that with his leadership, that now of the 84 of his co-sponsors, that of the 700 special operators, and I'm quite certain that of the vast majority of the American people, we will at long last find out what Benghazi Gate was all about and learn from it so that it doesn't happen again. Thank you very much.
Anybody have any questions? Well, I serve on that committee with Kay Granger. The budget just came out, but I think we have to do everything to make sure we are protecting the men and women who represent us. We just lost a young lady the other day in Afghanistan, and we lost 4 individuals in Benghazi. So I think we want to make sure if we're going to ask somebody to serve abroad, we ought to do whatever is necessary to protect them. But we'll be taking a very close look, and the hearings will begin to see if that is enough, and if it doesn't, it meets the current needs.
May I make a response as well? One of the reasons why I think we're here is in recognition of the fact that no amount of money, frankly, can put into place sufficient protection to prevent people on the ground in large numbers from murderously attacking a facility of the United States. Not $4 billion, not $400 billion. If they're determined to do it, they will harm our personnel. A big part of the lessons we need to learn from this episode is what does it take to deter such attacks? And what did we fail to do to deter these? And I think that that's what General Boykin and his comrades are helpfully illuminating, as is Congressman Wolf.
redacted and covered up. And that report details the Saudi role in financing the original 9/11 attacks. And on September 11th of 2012, the morning of Benghazi, Bob Graham put out an op-ed saying, if this is not reopened, this will strike again. This apparatus is still operational.
I haven't seen the letter, but we'll be glad to take a look at that. I was the author of the first National Commission on Terrorism, later the Bremer Commission, and we fund the FBI. And in the language of the bill that was passed and signed by the President just last week, we reauthorized bringing back the 9/11 Commission to look and see at things. But I'll take, if you can give me a copy of Mr. Jones' letter, I'll take a look at that.
I think there are several that are very critical. The questions that we listed there are questions that we believe have not yet been asked, and if they have, there has not been a satisfactory answer to those. First and foremost, why were there no U.S. military boots on the ground once this event started? And we find it unacceptable to say the military could not get there in time, given the amount of money and resources that has been put into being prepared to respond to an incident exactly like what occurred in Benghazi.
And you know, the purpose of this ought to be severalfold. One, it ought to be to gather all the necessary information to see if the Congress should do something, similar to the good question that was just asked, what the Congress should do, what it can learn from to make sure that this never happens again. Secondly, and equally important, it is important that the American people know what has happened. I just left my office before the vote and had a call from a member of one of the families of the fort. They don't know anything that went on. This individual lost a loved one and doesn't know anything and can't find out anything. General Boykin and many of the people who signed the letter are true American heroes. General Boykin was involved with Black Hawk Down. Actually, former Congressman Jack Marsh, who was the Secretary of Army and who was before that was the congressman from my congressional district, and was in the Ford cabinet, his son was right next. It was severely wounded. It was right next to General Boykin. How far was he from you, General, when he was that close? General Boykin is a true American hero. The men and women who signed this letter, they have forgotten more about counterinsurgency and activities like this than the average congressman knows. We owe them an obligation to find out, to answer these questions. Many people don't here have the expertise. And secondly, there are many federal employees, and I have probably represented federal employees as much as any member up here. I've advocated for federal employees over and over. Many are afraid to come in, or afraid to testify for fear that their job could be jeopardized. And thirdly, if you were a member of one of these four families, or how about the individuals who have been wounded and no one has ever spoken to them? No one in the press has ever spoken to them. Do we not have an obligation to honor them, to pay them the respect because they were basically on the battlefield? So there are many questions. But I think what General Boykin and the 700 have raised are questions that have to be answered, and it's an equal importance for the Congress to know. But if the Congress isn't that diligent and doesn't want to find out and know, then clearly the American people should have that knowledge.
Congressman, why do you think House Speaker Boehner hasn't come out in support of this, and are you optimistic that a select committee will happen?
Well, I'm optimistic that it will happen because we're up to 85. That was former Congressman Duncan Hunter, whose dad was the chairman of the Armed Services Committee. I went to Duncan's graduation, platoon leader corps at Quantico. He heard about this and said, put me on the bill. I think the letter from General Boykin, and now with some of the families now coming forward, I mean, just put yourself in their role. You know, do unto others you would have them do. If you heard from a family member who said, my son was killed, and I can't find out any information. And so my sense is with the Boykin letter, with the 700, you're finding the whole sea change with regard to that. So I'm very confident ultimately that this will happen. And you need a select committee because right now they can tell one committee one thing, another committee another. And I think they're all good people. I would be happy with any of the ones. Mike Rogers could be chairman. Ed Royce could be chairman. Bob Goodlatte could be chairman. Darrell Issa could be chairman. We're not, and I'm not going to serve on the committee. We're not asking. But to bring in the Armed Services Committee, to bring in Foreign Affairs Committee, to bring into the Judiciary Committee, to bring into the Government Affairs Committee, to bring in the Intel Committee. So I think you need one unified effort that can focus on this like a laser beam. And I'm ultimately convinced now, after the letter that General Boykin and the 700 signed it, that the Congress will feel it is an overwhelming obligation. Because if every congressman thinks they know all the answers, that's one thing. But if they don't know it, I think there'll be an obligation to support this.
Let me make one related point. I had the privilege of working on the Senate side of this body many years ago. And I believe that then, and certainly now, this is exactly what the Congress is supposed to do. This is what the American people elect members of Congress to do, is to represent them in conducting oversight and to assuring accountability of the executive branch. In many ways, what we are talking about today makes a number of other, well, frankly, scandals in the past pale by comparison. I mean, it's been pointed out that nobody died in Watergate, for example. Nobody died in the Iran-Contra affair. 4 Americans died in this instance, as has been mentioned. Many others apparently were wounded. In fact, I've been kind of wondering whether we need a Special Operations Forces mission to go in and end the witness suppression program that seems to be going on at the moment to keep these people from coming forward and illuminating what actually happened in this episode. But the point is that this is a moment when, if not the existing committees, and they've done what they can do apparently, and it's simply not adequate, Congressman Wolf is absolutely right. HRES 36 is absolutely necessary to do the job that the people of the United States send the Congress here to do. And that is to ensure that not only do they know the truth about what happened in this episode, but that it doesn't happen again if we can prevent that.
Anyway, thank you very much for coming. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.